Okay. I will call the October 16, 2017 City Council meeting to order. Call of the roll.
John Hawkins.
Here.
Matt McKinney.
Here.
Brian Miller.
Here.
Jim Talbot.
Here.
Logan Welch.
Here.
Call for motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Section A is the petitions, communications and requests. This is the time of the meeting that a citizen may address the council on a matter not on the agenda. Except in cases of emergency, the City Council will not take any action at this meeting that may ask the city staff to research the matter or have the matter placed on the agenda for a future meeting. Anyone have anything to bring before? No? Anyone have any?
My wife asked me to remind food pantry tomorrow, St. Thomas. So
Yep.
I don't know the hour.
4 o'clock.
4 till 6. Okay, she asked me to remind me. So.
Yeah. Couple of workers.
At the
Couple of
parish
workers here.
At the where?
I'm not.
The parish.
Maybe. I just want to say, Farmers Market will have customer appreciation this weekend. We'll be at a regular outside location. So, 7 to 11. Technically it's 8 to 11, but everybody gets there at 7, so.
Well, basically, I got the community events thing we got sent. So we've got October 18 to 28th, 12 noon till 7 p.m. as a memorial wall, remembering our fallen at the 749 2nd Street. And then Halloween from 3:30 till 5 p.m. at the downtown trick-or-treat. And 6 to 8 p.m. for the residential trick-or-treat. November 1st is a pumpkin scarecrow event at Wilson Brewer Park. And the rest of it can wait till our next meeting, I think.
I'll just mention,
Yes.
sometime this afternoon between 1 and 4, the Legion guys put the service flags out by the building.
Okay.
Rather than the, they had 4 American flags, now they've got the service flags out.
And now they have the new American flag pole up too, which will be way higher. It's gonna be sharp.
New American flag pole.
Yes.
Just for clarification's sake, you said American Legion. That is the Avenue of Flags.
Right.
You know, we got that building. The city leased that, so.
Right,
That's what she's.
but the Legion is the one who put the flags up, right?
Well, Ron Keegan's the chairman of the Avenue of Flags, so yeah, I mean, that's
All right.
supposed to be a community thing, but we know where it ends up
They're looking for help down there, he's saying.
every year.
Another volunteer thing for you. All right. B is minutes and claims. The following items have been deemed to be non-controversial routine actions to be approved by the council in a single motion. If a council member or a member of the audience wishes to have the item removed from this list, it will be considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. We have 1 minutes of October 2nd, 2017, 2 resolution on payroll for period ending September 30 and paid on October 6th of 17, and 3 resolution on bills and a funds list. How would you like to?
I'll move to approve 1, 2, and 3 collectively.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Section C is general agenda. Item 1 on the agenda is a second reading on a proposed ordinance, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Webster City, Iowa, 1996 by modifying sections to Chapter 63 pertaining to speed regulations. Did you want to?
Sure, this will be the second reading for the ordinance that would amend the speed regulations on Beach Street, essentially just before from Wall Street, clear out past Highway 20. I can bring up the map if you have any questions specific to the locations where those signs would be amended.
No questions, but just for the public's sake, maybe just kind of reiterate that we're pushing back the miles per hour, right?
Yeah, so you'll have the speed zones dropped. I think they're about 55 just south of Highway 20. You'll have a longer period where it will drop down, beginning at 45 miles per hour, and then drop down right before you get to or in the proximity of Fair Meadow Drive, heading north, drop down at 35 on Beach Street, and the reverse going south as well.
Just a question, and I don't know, I mean, Chief is here. When you go south there, you know, you go from top of the hill down, it's 35, then you get across, then it's 45. Then you get on top of the hill, you know, where it's 45 now, then it's a real short period, then it goes to 55. Is there a minimum distance between those?
There is, but I don't know what it is.
Okay, well, I think they mentioned 800 feet last time, but I just noticed that's kind of close there, but that's in the county then, I think,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's.
I think she was, the county engineer was talking about maybe putting that speed sign back a bit further, is that correct, Doug? No? Doug, was the county engineer thinking about moving that, putting a wider piece on that,
I think
lowering that speed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So, that could end up longer, but that's the county's thing, so she'll be looking at that later.
Right to 55. Good, thank you.
Call for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Do you want to waive the third reading?
Yeah, I'll move to waive the third reading.
Second.
Okay.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
I'll move,
Opposed, same sign.
I'll move to pass the adopt.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 2 is the second reading of a proposed ordinance, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Webster City, Iowa by amending Chapter 48, the Public Health and Safety Fireworks. You might as well give it a-
Sure. This is just, again, a second reading of the ordinance that pertains to the fireworks, discharge of fireworks, not the sale. It'll spell out that the use of fireworks will be permitted on July 4th from 10 a.m. to 12 midnight, July 5th of each year. It also is a further change that after Lisa and Zach were talking in terms of further defining defining what a residence would be as inhabited as a residence, not just a building per se.
So to clarify, like that would be, say I owned a lot, or say I owned a machine shed or something in the edge of town or something, that would, as long as it's within city limits, I would not be able to use the fireworks on my property if I don't consider it a residence.
You wouldn't be able to sell fireworks
sorry.
within 300 feet of a residence. So you could, essentially you can't sell fireworks on 2nd Street or any residential property area around town. So,
Okay, but it doesn't pertain to use at all?
no,
Okay.
use is just the 10 a.m. to 12 midnight.
But you still have to be on your own property?
Right,
Right.
yep. Or permission of the property owner that you're shooting them off at.
Or you're shooting it over.
Yeah, you can't shoot it on any public right of way or public street or any public property for that matter.
Okay. Call for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
There's
Motion
really,
approved.
there's really no hurry on this since it
Do you wanna
doesn't
wait
matter,
till-
but
Yes, sir.
I'll move to waive the third reading.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So do you want to pass and adopt?
I'll move to pass and adopt.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
No, sorry, the reason there's no hurry, because
Well, there is
we're kind of in
I mean,
that
it's-
sweet spot, but we might as well
Summer's
just
coming.
get it on the books, you know, so. Well, technically, as we have it written out, you could let them off in December, until this is passed.
Item 3 is first reading of a proposed ordinance, an ordinance amending Code of Ordinances of the City of Webster City, Iowa, 1996 by adding paragraphs 9 and 10 to Chapter 65, Section 03, adding a four-way stop on Fairmeadow Drive at Rodland Road and a four-way stop on Fairmeadow Drive at Cayman Drive. Do you want Kendall?
I guess I can kind of introduce it, and if you have specific questions about the intersections.
I do have a question on why the intersections were chose. Again, I just kind of wondered why those two, and what was the background on that.
Well, initially, I think there was a, let me back up. As we started planning on Fair Meadow being extended as part of Brewer Creek 5 and 6 being built out, as sometime in the past, the traffic committee discussed the possibility of where to place traffic stop signs and or other traffic calming measures if possible throughout that whole corridor, I would say. At the time, they had decided to table any action on specific measures, stop signs or otherwise, until the subdivision was built out, and then be able to do a traffic study to really understand the traffic patterns and where that would be. After that, as Fair Meadow was finished and opened up, we received requests from residents in the area, specifically for the ones on Cayman Drive and Fair Meadow, and then the ones on Rodland Road and Fair Meadow. And so, after kind of reviewing the initial traffic patterns, temporary stop signs, temporary four-way stop signs were placed there, and the traffic committee discussed at their last meeting whether or not to make those permanent or not, which, based on the recommendation, that they decided to go ahead and make them permanent, being that the temporary signs were already there, so people were accustomed to those being there. We received, I guess, comments on both sides in terms of people that are for or against it. Obviously, being by the park, there's a need for some stop sign between Des Moines all the way to Beach Street, and there's even an argument to be made about doing a four-way stop sign on Des Moines and Fair Meadow as well. But these two were some of the thoughts that we had in terms of looking at stop signs and or other calming measures in that corridor. Were kind of a little bit sped up by some of the requests that came through with the traffic that was now being seen with Fair Meadow once it opened.
No, thanks. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm all for traffic control on that road. I live kind of relatively in that area and know some of the people affected by that, and they're very thankful for the permanent signs, by the way. I was just curious on why those two intersections, because at first I think the intersection where the park is on would make more sense, but if the traffic study deems it, I mean, again, I might be naive to kind of how traffic works and flows and why stop signs would be better at those intersections instead of the one, I think it'd be North Terrace and Fair Meadow where the park sits.
Yeah, no, and I guess to be clear, I mean, there was no traffic study conducted. The goal was to wait until the subdivision was built, but out of the requests that came through for the ones on Cayman Drive and the one on Rodland, it was kind of like put them out and wait and see to see how they would work with the traffic patterns. We typically want to do a traffic study and place the permanent traffic signs or other signs or measures as a result of the traffic study before we move forward and do so. That really wasn't the case here, and we can go ahead and continue to move forward with leaving the permanent signs if you guys so wish, or we can just pull the temporary signs and then actually do a traffic study to really see and determine where the most ideal intersections to place stop signs, four ways, or just one-way stop signs, up to including everything from Beach to Superior Street.
Well, I personally wouldn't want to pull them. I wouldn't want to leave that road vulnerable to any, clumsy drivers or delinquent. But again, I'm totally for the stop signs. I just wanted to know a little background there of why those two. And then some pushback. What was some of the comments? I personally haven't really heard much pushback. It's all been praise, and thank you for getting those temporary ones out there, by the way, and city staff. But what were some of the negative comments?
Just residents having to stop. I mean, I think
just their own personal having.
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, and even some cases, you don't have the traffic at those intersections throughout the entire day, and so I mean, there are circumstances and there are other intersections where you'll pull up to the intersection, four-way stop sign or a one-way stop sign, and there is no vehicle traffic depending on the time and place. Like I said, There's debatable questions on both of those stop signs, as well as other intersections on Fair Meadow where they may merit a four-way or stop signs in those specific directions.
No, again, I thank you for getting those out there promptly. I know it eased a lot of parents in the neighborhood, and they're very thankful. Matter of fact, some of the parents were willing to come here if there was ever any thought of opposition to making these permanent, which I don't think there is, but anyway, thanks again. And again, just curious.
I think they're working well.
Yeah.
I've been through there.
Yeah, I don't really seem to notice them.
It slows me down.
I mean, I don't see.
Does that cost $800 too? Permanent ones?
Huh?
Will permanent ones cost $800 also?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that includes your labour and whatever, so it's not just the actual sign. So at least it's that's money in house. So.
Yeah. out of
We
our-
can-
We're not paying that to outside contractors.
We'll recoup it with stop sign tickets. I tried. If there's no other comments, I'd like to make a motion to pass.
Second.
Yep, second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 4 is a motion on Planning and Zoning Commission minutes of October 9th, 2017. Call for motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 5 on the agenda is a resolution setting time and place for a public hearing on the continuation of the citywide urban revitalisation plan for residential tax abatement for November 6th at 5:55 PM. We want to call Carl in?
I don't think
No, you can say
she's
it,
manning the camera. This is for setting the public hearing to be able to continue our infill tax abatement program. We've had a couple homes that were recently built within the past year or two that have come before the council. This really is one of our few tools available for really encouraging developments of infill lots that otherwise are difficult to try to see develop. There's a couple, I believe it was on Bank Street, if I'm not mistaken, a few others along Beach Street that you've seen over time. So it's had quite a big success. In essence, it defers tax abatement for the first 3 years following the construction of that home.
Yes, I was surprised with the numbers of houses that have been put in infill lots. It's quite a number of people have taken up the option for it.
I move to approve setting the date for November 6th.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 6 is a resolution authorising the mayor and city clerk to enter into a water service territory transfer agreement with Hamilton County Board of Supervisors, Hamilton County Conservation Board, and Xenia Rural Water District.
This is an agreement including the city, but also between the Xenia Rural Water District and the county that really grew out of the construction and development of the conference center that the county is building out there at Briggs Woods. Developments require that they have adequate source of water to be able to supply their fire suppression system and building. That led to, from what I understand, conversation with Xenia Rural Water District, who were unable, they didn't have the infrastructure to be able to support their needs, and began conversations about the city being able to provide that need. The agreement itself just spells out the transfer of the service territory, which encompasses Briggs Woods, so that the city can supply it. It doesn't require the city annex the area, and then they would be able to connect to our city's water system at the end of the water main at Gorley's addition off Virginia Parkway.
I have 2 questions on that, if I may. The first, will the city be required to do any construction to tie into this?
No, the county would be responsible for connecting to our water main at the end of that Virginia Parkway.
Okay, then the second question I had, and I don't know if anybody's able to answer that. The age of the infrastructure at the county, Briggs Woods, is that gonna be something we're gonna have I'm just thinking about, we have an infrastructure, cost right now in Webster City, and I don't know, you had a chance to look at that, Ken, or anybody?
Virginia
Are you
Parkway?
concerned about their lines in the?
Yeah, I mean, well,
They, we're not, they're running their own line from there. It's like your house, you're responsible for.
so they would be responsible for it, so the city,
So
okay.
it's not gonna become part of our infrastructure.
Okay, well, that was just a question I had. I know your
Yeah.
guys have enough time in the winter anyway, broken mains, I didn't know if we'd be stuck with that too, so.
Yeah, it would be no different than your service line to your home or to a business, a service line that connects to our water main. From that connection point on, is their responsibility.
Yeah, it always seems like the coldest day of the year, the public works guys are out digging a hole in this street somewhere, and I just, didn't know if we'd have an opportunity to show our skills out there. I just wanna make sure we're not buying a pig in the poke, so to speak, with
Be all new,
pardon?
be all new.
It'll all be brand new, because at this stage, but I think, were you thinking if they go out to the campgrounds and things like that? But that's all.
No,
That's all.
just, I didn't know what was in.
Well, from there, it's all brand new. There is nothing there now.
Oh, okay.
That's, the supervisors have got it, well, the county's
So they'll pay for that,
taking
okay.
care of it.
All right, well,
Now,
that
I mean,
answers
they
my
may
question.
come and ask us for help somewhere along the line, but
Specifically-
at this stage, it's their line, so, yeah.
Financial implications, none, so we're good.
Okay,
Thank you.
call for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 7 is a motion on request from the Public Works Director to purchase a generator for the City Hall. Does everybody remember the night we went down below and the
March
generator
6th.
finally started working and we had one bulb down there?
I think,
That was, obviously, there was a storm going on, people were worried about their homes, but that was a relatively interesting night here at the chamber, to have a break and then hang out in the basement with some families that joined us. Kinda neat, but yes, it did raise the awareness that the generator,
It's really insufficient, yes. Yours, Dan.
Sure. Yeah, you guys kind of touched on, I think March 6th storm really kind of made all of you up here aware of just some of the age of that generator as well. It's undersized. That generator was originally installed and operational January of 1990. And we currently, part of the need, and we shifted, because this has been on the PD's budget for several years now. We're now moving forward with that, and we shifted in a little bit of our philosophy in terms of just trying to replace a generator with an equal size and equal load, to really acquiring one and installing one that can support all of City Hall. Part of the reasoning behind that is this, just as we've added new technologies, especially with the police department, with their dispatching as well as our IT equipment here and servers, we wanted to make sure that everything was protected and be able to be usable during an emergency situation or emergency outage, so that we can continue to keep operations going. The other part was just the age of the building, and over time, as things have been added or changed, we were a little unsure in terms of what all was connected and backed up by the generator, and what the total load that was being supported by the generator. So we're going from a 10 kW generator to 125 kW, so obviously multiply that times 10 and 2/4, and it'll also be self-sufficient with a 250 gallon the current one has a 250 gallon propane tank sitting outside. The new one would be a diesel generator that would be located just to the south behind my office. So other than that,
So I see the one bid has details of a warranty, the one doesn't. I'm assuming the other one has a warranty, it just wasn't listed.
just curiosity, you mentioned diesel, and in the wintertime, unless that's blended fuel and everything else, Ken, is this your project? Is that, why would you go diesel as opposed to propane? And I just think, John would be a trucker, I just knew a lot of times with the Army vehicles, getting that fuel mix right, so in the coldest day of the year, you don't have gelled diesel.
I sometimes get these two diesels mixed up, number 1 or number 2. So, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but it will always be with number number two. It'll always have number 2 fuel in it, regardless of whether it's summer or winter.
So we don't have to worry about this?
So you don't have to worry
Oh,
about that.
no, that was just a question I
Yeah.
had, from experience.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
What all was tied to the generator, the existing generator?
Pretty much, and the reason why the generator was even there to begin with was really to support the police department's dispatching operations, and so that was the bulk of what was connected. We didn't have our HVAC system, we didn't have, I think the police department's servers were hooked onto it, we didn't have the servers on our end hooked up to that, and that was pretty much it. Probably about quarter or half of the load of the police department side, not a heck of a whole lot on this side.
So is there any rewiring that we're gonna have to do?
No, and that was part of the reason too, was if we wanted to really, as we started looking at this and started to ask what are the key critical components we wanted to tie into the generator, it just became problematic trying to figure out and calculate the loads and do the rewiring, so that's why we said it would be much more easier for us to buy one that can support the entire building, and as we add or change things into the future, we don't have to worry about that rewiring aspect.
Will there be an ongoing firing up and testing the system? I mean,
Monthly.
monthly, okay, yeah, that's just another question. Because I think everybody remembers 91, was it, when we had the ice storm?
And does the cheaper quote come with, the more expensive quote comes with factory authorized startup and training, 2-year, 300,000 or 3,000 hour warranty? We check if the less expensive one comes with that and you just didn't.
I don't know off the top of my head. I'll have to ask Gordon about that specifically. I don't know if he touched base with you, Ken.
I think you're gonna, with the one from PNP, I think we're gonna get a startup with it. I mean, they're gonna install it, but it's pretty much, straightforward. The other thing that we are looking at with this particular generator is an annunciator, which after you stop that generator, in other words, you have that monthly start, what you want to make sure is in the next minute that it will run again. And you may not know that until the next month or the next time you try to run that. So that's why you saw the figure of not to exceed, because we want to have an annunciator put on that so that it will tell us how or what condition that generator is in after it shuts down.
I have no further questions. It would be a good time to highlight the fact that our city hall is a storm shelter in a time of emergency. It was something I probably heard in the past. I just wasn't aware of it until I saw families show up that night. And I just hope everyone in the community knows that if you don't feel safe in your home, you're more than welcome to join us in the basement.
Hopefully it doesn't happen on Monday nights. Thanks, Ken.
Third time's a charm, Brian.
Okay, call for motion.
I'll move to approve the quote from PMP Electric.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 8 is a resolution setting a time and place for a public hearing on the proposed sale of lots in Brewer Creek 5th and 6th editions, Webster City, Iowa, for November 6th at 6 p.m.
We talked about this at the last meeting, about the lot prices for the new lots in Brewer Creek 5 and 6 as to setting the public hearing. After our last meeting, we followed up with the realtors as well as John Daniels, our municipal finance attorney that deals with a lot of our TIF and municipal bonding. So the realtors felt that the lot prices were right where they should be. Our bonding attorney, or our TIF attorney, as he kind of looked at it, he kind of summed it up as we can certify the tax increment financing district for any amount we want. Ultimately, it's a risk in terms of what we reasonably expect to be able to collect from that. Some of the changes that have occurred since we did Brewer Creek 3 and 4 was some of the changes in what we collect for low to moderate income. Part of the law in Iowa when it comes to TIF is that part of what's collected under the tax increment financing gets set aside for LMI related housing funds or supports, and so we've used that for some of our LMI funds for rehab loans and things of that such, as well as for tearing down homes in the past. And so roughly it's based on what the county's LMI, and if I remember correctly, that's roughly hovers around 40%. So as we calculate and work with him and Northland Securities in terms of figuring out how much we can collect off of TIF to pay off the construction cost, we have to account that LMI portion, which is why we kind of felt, based on the realtors and the bankers' comments, we felt it'd be better for us to kind of move forward with the lot prices that were presented, and at some time in the future, if we wanted to further reduce them based on what we're seeing sales wise or lack of construction, we can reevaluate that, being that it's easier to reduce them further in the future than it is to go back and try to increase them for whatever reason. So.
Anyone have any questions?
And we're just setting the date at this point, right?
Right.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 9 is a resolution establishing and approving the declaration of restrictions and protective covenants and conditions of Burl Creek Estates 5th and 6th editions in Webster City, Iowa. So we had some changes. Connie gave some.
Yeah, so I made the changes as far as our numbering got off on one, we were missing a 5, it went from 4 to 6, and then the other one we made the change was the very last sentence, and S was left off of additions. The other question that came up was, on the previous one, Carla's gonna yell if I don't hold the mic up, so. On the previous one, there was language in there about, unmarried families living together in rentals. And I didn't realize it made it into that draft that was presented to you guys, but state has changed the rules now, and state law went in January 1st, says you can no longer discriminate based on unmarried family members, so rentals, and it's just not something we probably want to make too big of an issue since we don't make it in any other part of the city, so.
You
Yes,
keeping
ma'am.
5 and 6 together as one unit with regard to the restricted covenants, or are you dividing them out and keeping them separate because they're separate neighborhoods?
Yeah, so on the current draft, they were kept together, and it's your guys' call on that one. I guess when the initial discussion was held about splitting them out or not, it was discussed, it's been, so far with 1, 2, 3, and 4, we haven't had an issue of ever changing covenants in 4. I don't believe we've ever changed them. And I don't think, the only time it would become an issue is voting rights. If you, like Connie's pointed out, if you give 35 votes to one side and 17 to the other, that 35 would have to be heavily weighted on some sort of change to these covenants that they would want to hold a vote. And if that's the situation, then yeah, they can change the covenants. I don't know if it's necessarily gonna be an issue we need to worry about, or if it is, then we can always.
Would Burl Creek 4 then be separate to 5?
Yep.
Because they'll eventually be in the same sort of group, wouldn't they?
But
Right.
4 already has a restricted
Right.
covenants.
4
We're
is-
thinking about putting
5
5 and
separate from
6
6.
together.
I know, but I was thinking of the other way, we're thinking about 5 and 6 being together, and with 5 being right there next door to 4, that could more likely to be a stay.
Yeah, and 4 is, or 5 and 6 will be, there's more in these covenants than there were ever in 4.
Right.
A lot of the same language that was in 4 is now in 5 and 6. I would say most, if not all. I'm trying to think if there's not any that's not. It's just there's more rules involved in 5 and 6 that were never thought of or addressed in 4.
It is interesting, whether, you did bring up a good point, I thought, whether you would separate them or not, because one might think that they're two separate groups.
Right.
Is there any downside to separating them?
No, the downs, it's just 2 separate covenants and agreements you guys have to pass and manage as far as voting goes, but other than that, there's no.
So what did you think? I mean,
It would,
it is a good point.
yeah. I'd be for splitting them. I mean, this doesn't have to be in place before the sale can happen, correct? Or
No, we could run it the November sixth meeting, cause that, you'll have your
'Cause
public
we're already-
hearing on the prices anyway at that
we're a
point.
week behind anyway on the prices, so it'd
Right.
catch it up if we waited and split them out.
Yeah, the whole idea is to have everything completed as November sixth, so that lots can start being sold after that, so it can be. No, nothing's gonna change even, so people, if they really want to, they could come and look at the language to see what's gonna be in the covenant, so I think it would, I mean, unless you have something else you wanna change, what I think it would change would just be separating out the two additions. Cause there's potential that a developer comes in and buys all 35 lots in 6, and then now they want a majority, I mean, they now have a majority voting. Granted, you can't change, we left in there that you can't change the covenants for 2 years. The idea being hopefully the lots would be
That would be
developed
so.
before, but if somebody's really upset about the fact that they can't put in a pallet fence, then yeah, they could buy all 35 lots and put houses up on all of them and then vote, cause they also have to be developed lots, they can't just be, you don't get voting rights until you have developed lots.
I'd be for splitting them out.
I would too, just because, I mean, you're talking low and middle and moderate income, then the other is gonna be kind of a higher end.
Right.
So I think probably, even though the language could be the same, you know, then I think it'd be better just to have them separate. Because that's just a little paperwork.
Yeah, it just doesn't take us, it'll take me about 10 minutes.
Yeah. We've got time, so it's not gonna be a problem.
So then at this point, would we just,
You wanna just wait and we won't?
we would just
have a
table this
motion
for a week until we do
Till
the,
the next meeting?
And then you'll bring back 2 resolutions, one for 5th and one for 6th.
Yeah. Unless there's any other changes, if you guys have reviewed this, that you also wanna see made, but.
I don't see any, but I think there's some other stuff that gets taken care of by other city ordinances. So.
Right. This can be more restrictive than a city ordinance, it can't obviously be less restrictive. So,
Yeah.
For example, chickens are allowed in most parts of town, but they would not be allowed in 5th and 6th, so, just so you're aware. I don't know, you knew that or not. You also can't park campers.
Okay. So we're happy to pass it for tonight then? We'll just waive that one? Okay. We'll move on. Item D is reports, recommendations of officers, boards and commissions. The following items have been deemed to be non-controversial routine actions to be approved by the council in a single motion. If a council member or the member of audience wishes to have an item removed from this list, it will be considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. We have motion to accept the financial September reports, finance treasury report, bank reconciliation report, investment summary, FSB ICS savings 791, public fund account, and an FS bill statement. Item 2 is a motion to accept the city manager's September reports on electric, wastewater, water, electric year-to-date and water year-to-date. Item 3 is code enforcement, a motion to accept the police department's September report. And item 4 is a motion to accept the fire department's September report. How would you like to do items 1, 2, 3, 4?
Move to approve.
collectively.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Are there any other committee reports? How's the,
Nothing that
much
won't be,
happening with the,
well, nothing that won't be addressed in E.
okay, well. Any other items sent to council? Oh, you've got it here, discuss youth advisory.
Yeah.
There you go.
So no, I believe this was put on here, right, Carol, just to remind us that we have interviews we gotta do,
We have 3 applicants.
right? And we're trying to find a date.
If you want me to try to set it up before the November 6th meeting, if you wanna do all 3, cause you have already interviewed one of them, the last round.
Could we possibly do it before the town hall? I know we've done that in the past. Because, and the reason I asked for, like, just to be expedited is, it's, with so much stuff going on during the school year, it's so difficult to get quorum, you know, especially with one member down. So, if we can get another member in there, it might be easier to make, you know, that monthly meeting cadence happen. And we have 3, eager volunteers wanting to get on, so I wanna get their impact as soon as possible. So if the rest of the council's okay with it, I'd look into maybe doing interviews like between 6:30 and 7 on the 30th, if it works for the applicants.
And have it, just do them at the middle school?
Yeah.
Just in
Yeah.
the commons area?
Me too.
Okay, I'll see if I can, and you wanna do all 3?
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
cause I'd like to give
I think
that
he
applicant
should
another
come
shot,
back,
yeah.
because otherwise he's not right there.
Yep.
Okay,
Can be forgotten, so.
alright. I will see if I can get those set up.
So the idea, if it works out, would be, what do we say, 6:30? 6?
Probably
There's 3 of them,
6:30,
so we give them
'cause
each 10
10, 10,
minutes,
and
and
10.
we'd be able to, yeah. And last time weren't we able to use like the principal's office or something, but we needed the privacy of safety?
Yeah, we were in the back room.
Yeah, community members came a little early, we were able to
Yeah.
pull them aside.
I don't know if we'll have that access, but I can check on it. If not, it'd be fine, probably just sitting around one of the round tables for.
Yeah, it's large enough where you can have a little confidentiality.
A reminder that October 30th, of course, is our town hall meeting at the middle school commons at 7 p.m. And we're still looking for topics.
What were some of them we're floating before? So obviously, like maybe an update on the wastewater plans, timeline, issues, whatever might be good.
Well, we talked about
Price of stop signs.
Quick Trip before, but that
Price of stop
has been
signs would be
removed.
really good.
Yeah, Quick Trip's kind of tabled for now. I mean, I'm sure it could be brought up and we can, elaborate on where we're at.
We can discuss our conversations with the governor.
Maybe. If you're nice to me.
Daniel, you did a really nice piece in the City Scene. You too, Jim, by the way. That was a really positive article. I like that. We had so much, or so many, I should say, city updates. Things are happening. I didn't count, but I'm guessing around 20 or 30 items, of just things happening at City Hall. So there's plenty of things to talk about. It just kind of depends on what the members of the audience want to dig into, maybe. But it would be good to have 1 or 2 good solid topics to build out the agenda and then go from there. Any other ideas?
Leaf
Yeah.
removal.
Leaf removal?
Like in other city communities, they'll pull them all to their curbs and then.
We have citywide leaf pickup here. Coming up pretty quick.
14th.
No, but what Becky's
14th?
saying,
Okay.
there's other communities in counties surrounding us where on the designated weekend, and it doesn't have to be the whole town at one time, days or whatever. You put your leaves in the street and they come along with their big,
Sucker upper.
yeah.
How many sweepers do we have?
I don't know, 1 or 2, one I.
And I don't know
No,
that
Dora
it's a
does it,
sweeper,
I
I think
think.
it's bigger than a
It's a special
sweeper.
type of sweeper, it's almost like a
Like a
huge
vacuum,
vacuum
isn't it?
cleaner that
Yeah.
goes
Because
along the
you
curb.
have to mulch as well.
Pretty
at the same
expensive
time.
machine.
Yeah, I was like, we just have our little street sweeper, but never do anything like that.
Well,
The people we talked to thought maybe the county owned it and went to the different towns with it, I don't know.
maybe you could rent it from another community.
So as it is
They must
now,
do
they
their-
You have
have
one
to
on
bag and
back.
put them on the
Don't
curb.
spend $800 on a stop sign, we can buy one in a few years.
Yeah, but we're offering all you have to do is put it in the bag and we'll pick it up for free.
Well, our street sweeper suck all that stuff up.
Well,
Not very well.
But you're talking that's more of like a
It's a community
regular
service.
thing,
It's a
where we offer it
community
just
service.
once a year. Right,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess.
Well, no, I think this is probably once a year.
So the price of one of those machines, we might be able to get volunteers a lot cheaper.
What did he say?
I said at the price of one of those machines, it might be a lot cheaper to get volunteers.
But no, I mean, not to squash your point. I mean, it's a valid point. It's a valid point to talk about at town hall
We brought
because
it up a year ago.
if other communities are doing something, those are the ideas I want to hear about. If it's successful in Carroll or if it's successful in Eagle Grove or something like that, maybe it'll
I
be
think it was
successful.
Eldora that we saw it at when we were on a road trip,
Interesting.
When's the perfect weekend to do that sort of thing?
after the last leaf has fallen.
There's a tough call, because I've got trees that drop all the
If that's the case, we'll never have to buy a machine.
That's true.
You gotta thread that needle between the last leaf and the first snowflake. That's a tough one.
Yeah. Well, it's still a good point, so.
Yeah.
Okay. maybe we can have a discussion about that on the 30th.
All right,
All right, anyone else have anything?
I'll put my thinking hat on too.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favour say aye. Opposed, same sign.
I'll be in the
Adjourn.
hospital for a
Thank
day,
you.
I think.